Looks good in S1. Roger. BCS arm switch is on. Okay, Victor. Landing rocket arm switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Circuit breakers in. We have separation. Inboard and outboards are on. We're coming forward with the side stick. Oh, looks good. Roger. I've got a blowout. Amber 3. Get your pitch to 0. Pitch is out. I can't hold altitude. Correction. Alpha hold is off. Trim selected. Emergency. Flight com. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm Dave Hooper, and I'm here with my good friend Howard and Eric, who I think just got his finger. If you ever saw, what was the movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, when John Candy, or Steve Martin has his fingers stuck in the dashboard of the car? The reason I'm telling you this story is I picked Eric up on the way.
Yep.
Are you okay now?
I'm fine. My heart rate's down where it needs to be.
He looked white as a ghost when he walked into the studio.
Well, by the grace of God, we got here.
We're here.
Actually, earlier than most days, so it's good to see you guys. Everyone
you
seems
too.
like they're in a sort of a good mood today. Well, at least you are, Howard. Are you in a good mood, Eric?
Well,
When you
He's
face
probably
death and
thankful.
survive.
right. And, I'm in a more good mood than I thought I would be after losing my car. You know?
Yeah, you were talking about your car last week. Isn't that the one that's going to last 400,000 miles for you?
Well, yep.
Kicking my Ford's ass?
Yep. Blew the engine.
It got
yesterday.
almost to 300,000.
Yeah, 299,000 miles.
We're going to have a funeral for it.
So,
That's almost worth putting another engine in, isn't it?
no, I don't think so.
No.
No.
All right, so today we're going to go through, we're going to finish up what we started last week and dealing with the emotions of opening your eyes. You know, what's the fallout? What are the rewards? What is the light at the end of the tunnel? Before we get into that, I want to, two shout-outs I want to give. One is to Elder Care, family-owned business since 1990. If you or a loved one needs care in your home, call Elder Care, 734-671-6518, or you can visit eldercarecares.com. And I'm also going to give a shout-out to some very good friends of mine out east. Actually, they're global, to be honest with you. Claudio Marty and IamTheFaceOfTruth.com. If you're not sure what that is, you should go check it out. IamTheFaceOfTruth.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. Claudio's a good guy.
If you've ever seen what they're probably most known for, if you're ever on Facebook and you see how some profile pictures have a yellow USA or Sweden
Right.
or worldwide or Canada vertically along the side of your profile picture, that is someone that is involved in the I Am the Face of Truth campaign. I am involved in it. I think it's one of the most recognizable brands,
Yeah, by
if
far.
you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
And good guys. They're trying to get the truth out there. Of course, I respect that, and you should check them out. So, and speaking of sponsors, one thing I noticed, we sit here and we talk about God on most of these shows. And if you ever listen to who the sponsors are, Adam and Eve channel, their beer drinking ads, liquor houses.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. So I love sponsors in general. And all I'm doing is calling out a little self-humor on the fact that that's what's being advertised between events. And don't get me wrong, man, that's the kind of stuff that I do still love. Don't get me wrong, I do, because I'm a man and I'm human. All right, where were we? Down the rabbit hole. As usual, it's not down the conventional hole. And as always, I say, don't believe me. Go do your own research on this stuff. The truth is out there. In fact, in a few weeks, I'm coming out with a book. It's either going to be called the 401 book or the 401 quotes book. Not sure. But I'm going to give you a look into, most of these quotes are from famous people that we know. But I'm going to give you at least one tonight. And the first one, which is actually, I think I coined it. I'm not sure. Maybe someone else has. But it sort of goes along with the moniker we use here, which is the information's out there. Do your own research or try to prove something we say as incorrect. And the quote would go something, I don't have it exactly yet, but I think this is it. And that is that there are no more secrets, just ignorance.
Nice.
Do you like that?
I like it a lot.
All right.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of ignorance, but I like the quote.
Yeah, I was going to throw some other quotes out there. I was going to try and retrace the steps of the Illuminati. And not that I want to always bring light on the work of evil, because I think everyone has a different calling. You know, there's some people in this world that, they're healers. Some people are preachers. Some people are missionaries. I mean, there are a lot of different ways to, participate in the body of Christ, I guess. And I do think that there's also some that are called to basically point out evil. I mean, it's kind of where that Ephesians 5:11 quote comes in, that passage, which is one of my favorites, along the lines of better to uncover the unfruitful deeds of darkness than participate in them, or something along those lines. And believe me, I'm a lifelong participant in them, so I'm actually pretty good at knowing how they work.
Did they give you a participation trophy, though?
Plenty of them. And it's called venereal diseases. It's called, by the time I'm done with this whole show, you guys are going to know me because I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm really not. I'm a very open person, and, that's just the way it is. All right, we may get into some other quotes later if we have time. So, Howard, anything that you want to add, say, chime in with?
Well, yeah, on the topic you were on before we started joking, the thing about evil, the thing about badness as opposed to goodness, that's how some people find their light. Is sometimes you got to have someone shut the lights off for you to see the doorway that's glowing in the corner you need to walk through. I mean, for some people, I know for myself personally, I spent a long time looking for what was absolutely good to prove to myself that what exists and what's going on in the world, and the whole time I was surrounded by unequivocal, irrevocable presence of darkness and bad and negativity. I mean, it's everywhere. And the way the universe works is you can't have one without the other. I mean, that we know for sure.
Yeah. Seat belts are on my mind, maybe because of the hell I just put Eric through.
I think they're more on Eric's mind.
Well, my point is one of the reasons you start wearing, often someone might wear a seatbelt is because you saw an accident. I mean, you saw something bad happen, and as a result of not...
Absolutely. The bad thing I saw happen was 1 million tickets for not wearing my seatbelt. Thank you, big brother.
All right, so let's get back to this little guy here. Let's see. All right, so we're going to talk about a few things. First of all, the call-in number, if anyone wants to call in today, is 313-879-5059. And we're going to be going over some advice about how to handle opening your eyes and opening the eyes of people around you, and some of maybe the do's and don'ts. You can hopefully learn from some of my mistakes. And in the last hour, if we've got time, because Howard's always with us for the first hour, if I got time in the last hour, I'm going to actually tell the inside story, which I haven't ever told really to anybody, I don't think, except for maybe you, Howard, and a couple other people, of how I went from investigating 9/11 to realizing God is real, which obviously changed my life. So that'll also be part of a film that's coming out later, but let's not get all bogged down by that. So where are we here? I do believe... Well, let's talk about advice on dealing with opening your eyes. So, Howard, can you rephrase for us a little bit about, maybe just put a few thoughts together of some of the emotions you went through while you were on your own, discovering some of this stuff on your own, and how it impacted maybe your family, your wife, you yourself, your friends. I mean, talk a little, because I bet you a lot of people have the similar experience.
I mean, for me, it was there was years and years of things that just didn't quite add up, and then I would get distracted by going on with daily life, and at the point where I would say that at the point that I really woke up and went, whoa, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah. It was actually it was watching your movie. I mean, quite honestly, because that was the first.
I was not looking for that answer, and no, I did not arrange for him to give that answer. We actually never talk before these shows.
No, we don't. We're supposed
to. And I'm not looking for him to. I actually want you to say something that has nothing to do with me.
No, I mean, but it was in this particular instance, it's what was. It's as I watched it, it was finally someone had the time and opportunity to put together a list of facts that just proved that what the company line was didn't add up. And it appealed to me from a logical standpoint, which is the way my mind works. So a lot of times it's just pure logic that makes me go, no, that I don't buy that. But then you move on and you do something else. And so really it's almost like once my eyes were open to the fact that yes, there's definitely a lot of other people out there that think things do not look quite the way we're being led to believe they are. It was almost like a blind man seeing light for the first time. It was almost like, and I mean, I can imagine, you see movies where people get eyes transplanted or all of a sudden have sight, and it's like, you start to see a little bit of light, and then all of a sudden you open your eyes and it's like there's colors, and it's just this flood of everything around you, because once you realize, once they pull away the veneer of illusion that surrounds, and in particular, it's 9/11. That's what brought us together. That's the topic that we talk about, and once the curtain comes back and you see behind the scenes, and you're like, yeah, that now I get it. That totally doesn't make sense. It allows you to look at all the other things that subliminally have stayed with you for years and years and years. As that just didn't make sense to me, and all of a sudden it's like, well, yeah, now totally.
Right. What about you, Eric? Anything? Have you had any like emotions or reactions to any of the things like we talk about here? Or
well, like I said, when I first saw your movie, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass either. When I first saw your movie, it kind of woke me up. But I think Tony Schwartz was the first guy to kind of make me open my eyes. I've always voted, and I've always been, the JFK thing kind of grabbed me a little bit. I'm a true crime kind of guy. So I read a lot of books about true crime and, things that happen, espionage, shit like that. So I've always had that, that kind of aha thing. But when Tony came to me, I was at his house doing a plumbing job, and Tony came to me and was like, he goes, do you guys got any shows? He's got that rough voice.
Right, good radio voice.
You got, you got any shows that talk about, government and conspiracies and, how he thinks the government's messing with you, And I'm like, not really, but, I'm always open to it. And his whole thing was, he's like, I can turn on CNN and they tell me one thing. I turn on Fox News and they tell me the exact opposite thing of what the other people just told. And he's like, where's the truth? It's got to be somewhere in between. And that's what I want to, do. So I sat in with him for about the first 3 months of his show, listening to the things they were talking about. Freedom Works.
With an X at the end.
Yep.
Freedom Works. That's a great show.
Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. on caveradiobroadcasting.com. And, it kind of opened it up, and I started thinking about stuff, and I started reading a little bit more, and, I think that was what kind of really started opening my eyes. And then having you come in and, listening to I'm like, this guy's crazy. And then I saw the movie and was like, whoa, it just kicked me right in the ass.
I remember because Tony interviewed me, and on this was a year ago, long before I was ever thinking about doing anything like this. And we went outside and basically off air, off the record, he's like, he knew about 9/11. He was already clued into so much of this stuff. It was like a relief to be able to talk to someone, not feel like you're dragging them through the mud.
Yep.
And I will say this, you know, like we've talked before, 9/11 was done in front of our eyes. It's really the modern day Pearl Harbor of our generation. And if you become an expert at 9/11, that the template that you will build, you know, that it will happen as a byproduct of looking into 9/11. You won't even realize that you're remapping your brain. But that new map you have, you can apply it to all sorts of different historical events. And if you understand what fractals are, you know, the repetitive patterns of nature, which is another thing that kind of flies in the face of an evolution that relies on mutations. But anyway, I always remember, you know, when I'd run into something that just was beyond my zone of belief, I'd go back to, and I'd remember that I know with my own eyes, this was before my movie had come out, that 9/11 was absolutely an inside job. And the way they lied about it, and the way they covered it up afterward, and the way they got the media complicit in it, and the way that there were hundreds, if not thousands, of whistleblowers, and the way we never heard about them, and the way they used crisis actors. It's if you want to open your eyes, it's a great place to start. And there's, you know, you can go on YouTube and just type in 9/11 truth, and you'll see hundreds of documentaries. You certainly can get The Anatomy of a Great Deception at agdmovie.com. Although we're coming out with a new website. Howard, is it ready to even be talked about yet?
Anytime you are.
Well, why don't you tell us what it is?
Well, we're working on putting together a website that will give everybody access to the resources that we use to research AGD and the movie we're working on now, and that's going to be called genpopmedia.com.
So is it up, and like if someone goes to Genpop right now? Then actually we didn't mention that yet, but it's coming soon. And we'll
have an under construction thing up soon.
It's basically going to be like a library of some of the shadow subjects that exist in this world, and these are going to be the documentaries, the witness testimonies, the interviews, the stuff that we've looked at and been able to at least put our stamp of approval on as, look, this is a serious, thoughtful.
It's a legitimate alternate philosophy, you know, or a legitimate alternate way that something could happen. You know, we're going to try and keep the kooks out of there, you know. But again, it's just us sharing the information we have with people. You know, we absolutely hope that we will be getting input from those who join the site or frequent the site. There's going to be discussion boards and that kind of stuff, so that hopefully it's going to be interactive for everybody. And
so we'll talk more about that later. You know, someone asked me this week, why the emphasis on all these conspiracies? And you know, it was a good question because I hadn't really verbalized it, and I thought a little bit about that. Look, if all there was in this world, if the only thing that was discovered along the way was that 9/11 was an inside job, and let's say it was about securing more oil, I guarantee you I would not be on the radio talking about it. It would just be one event from history, big deal. For me, it didn't become important until, and this is the story I hope to get into in the second hour, is the way that it actually led me to the truth, you know, my realization. And I'm not going to say my belief because that doesn't feel strong enough. My realization, for me personally, that there actually is a God. Now, that a lot of people are sort of born with that knowledge innately. And, you know, in a lot of ways I'm jealous because I spent most of my life not really believing. I used to call myself a just-in-case prayer, which meant, you know, I'd pray to God just in case he's real so that I could win the lotto so I could buy that shiny new Corvette or whatever. You know, you understand.
To drive you to get cigarettes, beer, and pornography.
Exactly. So the ironies woven into that are all true. They all applied to me as well. But for me, it became worth talking about because it was looking not just at one, you know, it's not like I looked at 9/11 and all of a sudden said, oh, well, there must be a God. And I didn't look at 9/11 and right off the bat go, oh, well, evil emanates from the devil. And I didn't look at 9/11 and go, oh, now there's a hole in my heart. I need to go find something to fill it. Let's go find God. It wasn't like that at all. Maybe like Eric, I like puzzles. I like mystery shows. I like the investigative shows. And that's what, once, that first question of 9/11 happened, it's been one of the most unbelievable adventures of my life because, like we've said about the internet, it is the largest library ever assembled in human history. Never since the library at Alexandria in Egypt has there ever been anything like this. And it took about 2,000 years for that data to be reformed. It's now available in our lifetime. This is brand new. And it's too bad that companies like Allstate make jokes about, oh, did you discover that on the internet? Oh, okay. And that's a little
it's
bit.
because they realize. It's because they realize that people are starting to get
exactly
facts from first-hand accounts rather than media manipulated accounts. And so it's like everything else. They got to get that in the back of your brain. So, oh yeah, well, I heard it on the internet. It must be true, right?
Now, and when you say they, this is where you might start to lose people because I almost lost my old girlfriend Myra a few weeks back when I was talking to her about it because she's like, "Who is they, Dave?" And I'm like, "All right,
it depends on what you're talking about."
They are the powers behind our currency. They own not just the media, but they own essentially every bank. They own insurance companies. They own space exploration companies. They probably don't own plumbing supply companies, but if it's something that has impact on the control of humanity, odds are they've got either complete control of it or are on the way to doing that. And it's no accident that, it's when you understand the brainwashing we're under, when that Allstate ad came out where the guy was making fun of this girl that had met a date online.
Yeah, the French guy, yeah.
And, what was the message of that ad besides just buy insurance? It was, how can you rely on what you find on the internet? And I run across people today who say to me, oh, are you going to trust that because you found it on the internet? Like they've actually
I make that joke myself.
They've bought into it. But the thing is, I'm like, what, are you going to believe it if it comes out of the Anderson Cooper's mouth? Because I guarantee you he's a liar. I can prove that.
He's one of the best actors in the world.
Wonderful. They all are. They're all witches to boot, but that's a whole nother show. So the reason that this was so moving for me and why it changed my life, again, it wasn't just because there was one crime, 9/11. It was because, from 9/11, the investigation went into our currency, and it branched out into so many different places, our Central Intelligence Agency. In fact, are our friends at Langley listening today?
I was just looking when you were
Let me know if they
that.
are. And if they are, I'm going to say hi to you guys. And I want you guys also to ask yourselves what you're really involved in. Instead of listening to this stuff and reporting it to your superiors, ask yourself what you're really a part of.
You actually got weird
spread?
Long Island, Pittsburgh, Bloomington, Indiana, a bunch in Detroit, Milwaukee, Chicago, and then there's that one down in Virginia. So
all right. So you guys,
hi.
Yeah, take a second look at what you're doing. There's a quote from someone, and I want to say it was maybe Goethe who said
you got a phone call.
Something along the lines. We'll take it one sec, but they said more evil has been done in the name of good than evil. People are good. They don't wake up and say, oh, I want to do bad things. But we think that if our superior at the CIA tells us, oh, you need to do this, ask yourself why you're doing it. Just maybe do a little digging there before you just blindly go following these orders, which may not be in the best interest of our country. All right, so we have a caller.
Yep.
Hello, caller.
Hello. This is Jeff.
Jeff. How are you, Jeff?
Hey. Good. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. I'm glad to be on the show. Thanks. I was listening to everything that you guys have been saying so far and nodding my head along and really enjoying what you guys do.
Do you have a story to share that does not involve you watching The Anatomy of a Great Deception? Because we got that one covered.
Well, my story does involve the anatomy of the Great Deception, but it certainly goes beyond that. But I'll try to keep my story as brief as possible, because I could certainly talk about it for hours and hours. But, I live in New York City. I'm 38 years old. I own a technology consulting company, and I've always been really into technology, really into science. And I think, really just kind of I always thought that I was a modern, educated person. I believed in science. I believed in logic and rational things. I was, my parents were Jewish. I was born very liberally, Reformed Jewish, and I went to temple occasionally and kind of saw a lot of stuff that I thought was interesting, but kind of like a mythological representation of trying to understand the world.
Give us one example.
As I got older.
Do you have an example give us one example of what you were just talking about, this mythological representation in the world?
Well, I think it would all boil down to God. I think it all boiled down to, as I got older and started to really question the whole notion of God, the conclusion that I came to, and it was the conclusion that everyone in my peer group came to, was, anything, it was, no, it's a well-intended but naive, kind of wishful thinking way of looking at the world. And now in the, 20th and 21st century, we've just clearly come so far beyond that. And anybody that still clings to that, literally, is pretty ignorant. And everything, the way that I was looking at the world as I got older and, went to college and all that stuff, everything was reinforcing the notion that, yeah, of course, if in God, if you pray, if you talk about spirituality and all this stuff, it's just ignorance. So I was really, it wasn't even a debate. It was just, that was my worldview. And I was in New York City, in Brooklyn, actually, on 9/11, and I experienced that whole event. And for years and years after that, there was just something huge about 9/11 that really bothered me. And it was more than just, obviously, all the trauma of the event. It was the fact that there was something big nagging there that I could not put my finger on.
Do people in New York City have the same view as the rest of the country about 9/11, or do you detect that there's a difference in how they view 9/11?
No, I think it's by and large the same. I mean, on that day for sure. And I wasn't in Manhattan. I know some people that were, but I was in Brooklyn. Everyone that I was with was in Brooklyn. We were all just absolutely stunned and shocked, to watch this thing happen on TV and to watch. It was almost just like a metronome of tick tock, one event after the next, just getting worse and worse, and the kind of just the building dread of, from something that went from there was an accidental plane crash to there were two to the, the pen. It just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then ending up with
that had to be almost worse for you in that area than the rest of us, because it was bad enough. But I mean, you drive by those places all the time, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember the night before 9/11, I was working in Manhattan at the time, and actually the longer story, but my girlfriend at the time was in Japan teaching English, and she was flying back to America on 9/11. And on the night before, I was leaving my office to head back home, and I looked out and I saw the World Trade Center, and I just remembered that. I always liked looking at those. I like looking at all buildings, but those buildings were just awesome. Even if you didn't like their architecture, it was an incredible thing to look at the biggest building in the city and have there be two of them, and have them be kind of identical. It was just amazing. So I remember seeing it that night, and then, the next morning, but everyone that I was with, we were all stunned, obviously. And, but nobody that I was with had any inkling or had any thought that what was happening could have been any different than the way it was portrayed on TV. And I, as the years went by and I began to notice a lot of people saying otherwise, it just seemed ridiculous to me, that the idea that those buildings could have fallen down as a result of anything other than those planes seemed ridiculous. And then at a certain point, after watching enough videos and doing enough research and being pointed in enough different directions, it began to really just cause a lot of cognitive dissonance, because I was seeing, it wasn't so much facts that I was seeing, although there were plenty of facts, like from AE 9/11 that pointed out, the properties of steel and, the way that the airplanes were working. All of those things were interesting facts that contradicted the official account, but it was also just the questions that were coming up there was a conspicuous absence of answers to these basic questions. There was a very specific tone or attitude that people would take when they were asked these questions, people in government, or the media. And the more I began to realize that there were really serious questions there, and that I wasn't asking these questions because I felt, like I wanted to hurt somebody. I wasn't asking these questions out of bad, will. They were honest, simple questions. And that when I got to the point where honest, simple questions were being met with almost, like rage, that was just very confusing, because my whole worldview had taught me to believe that we were in a very scientific, world where there was integrity to information, and whatever theory presents itself, regardless of how odd.
Wait, so do you believe 9/11 was an inside job, or do you think it was 19 guys from the Middle East? Where are you today? And then we're going to move on. Unless you have another big point, we're going to move on. But where are you today, and how has that impacted your life and maybe your family life too?
So essentially, at the end of the day, and in large part due to some of the things that I saw in Anatomy of Great Deception, I've come to very strongly believe with certainty that God is real, and that I do not believe that the story the government told is true. I honestly have no idea what, quote, really happened, although I think even the notion of something that, quote, really happening in a way that can be explained the way that I was looking for answers before, that doesn't even seem to necessarily make sense anymore. But so what I would clearly say is that there's obviously a massive, conspiracy or intention to cover up what other people know are truths. So it's by no means the way the government presented it. And if you look online, you'll see all kinds of different theories. And, it seems like I'm not in a place to pick any one of those. But
you would have been there before seeing the Anatomy of a Great Deception, yes? Or, I mean, were you there?
I don't think, no, quite honestly, it was the Anatomy of a Great Deception and some of the people that I spoke with after that and some of the questions that I asked myself after that brought me to God, because a lot of where I was going before the Anatomy of a Great Deception was trying to piece together pieces of the puzzle without a vital part of the puzzle.
I want to ask
God
you
is a vital part of the puzzle.
I want to ask you a quick question, then we're going to have to move on. In 2 sentences or less, and I'm going to stress 2 sentences or less, how did you get from 9/11 to God? Can you do it in 2 sentences?
2 sentences.
Or 20 seconds, whichever comes faster.
What 9/11 proved to me was that there was true evil and deception in the world that was greater than I ever could have imagined. So that's
it. You got it. You got it.
Good.
That's
okay.
All right. We're in agreement.
Thank you for calling,
Thank you,
man.
Jeff. For
thanks, brother.
You're welcome. Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for what you guys do. Keep it up.
All right, peace.
All right, talk soon. Didn't mean to rush him off, but I've had so many people come to me after each show and say, "Dude, you got to get to points faster." And that's, I'm like, okay, I'm learning this thing about radio. So the reason conspiracies, why those were close to my heart, like Jeff just said, they led me. And again, I didn't just look at 9/11 and then suddenly believe, oh, well, the devil must be behind it. It wasn't like that at all. But I will say this: there are many ways to research. There are many ways to find God in this world. Don't confuse that with there are many paths to heaven. I firmly believe there's only one, and that is through Jesus, and you'll need to figure that out. And as a former scientist, an entrepreneur, a business owner, a researcher, I'm still getting comfortable with even saying those words because I've got 42 years of brainwashing working on me.
It's difficult at first, but what's cool about it is the more you say it, as you start to say it to people, I find that more often than not, where I would expect someone to give me the kind of reaction that I used to give people is like, oh, really? We're going to go there? Come on, man. What I find more often than not now is I find that when I say that to people, it's the relief in their eyes because they look back at me and they're like, yeah, Merry Christmas.
And there's something going on in this world, and I think I think it was also written about in the book of Revelation, and it was prophesied that there was going to be one final pouring out of knowledge, basically, of the truth, and that might be what the internet was. It could have been a prophecy of the internet. So, for me, it was. There are many ways, and again, there are many ways to discover the reality of God, but don't confuse that with many ways to get to heaven. I believe that there is only one way to do that. But one way to do that, one way to find the truth of God is through the study of conspiracies, and I firmly believe it. You will see a pattern, then you will begin to find the links to the demonic world. That's one way to do it. I'm not saying it's the best way. You can also do it, actually, if you study DNA and genetics, you can absolutely prove the existence of God. In fact, something if you guys should look up, do a little YouTube search on something along the lines of God's message in DNA. And you may find out that God himself, the creator, actually left messages in our DNA that only in the last couple of years, so you never would have heard about this in your school books, but only in the last few years have scientists been flipping in droves from atheism to evolution to the standpoint of, holy cow, not only is creation true and obviously scientifically true, but there are actually the Word of God written in our DNA code, in the the proteins, the enzymes that make up, the quadratic. It's not a not binary, but it's the 4-digit code that makes up DNA. I'll save my DNA talk for. So there's, like I said, there's many ways to do it. You can do it through biology, DNA, genetics. You can study archaeology to the nth degree. You will find the proof of God if you do that. You can study history to the nth degree, astronomy, geology. And there are many other fields of study that if you take them to the nth degree and don't just believe errors from the past, don't just believe what some authority figure is only himself repeating to you, but if you do your own research and peel back every little layer of that onion, you will arrive at the basic truth that there really is a God. And of course, the other way to get there, and that just was not my way because I'm not a faith-driven person, but is to just have faith. Some people just choose to believe because maybe it's something innate or it's something they feel. And what can I say? That was not my path. It sure would be a lot easier, I think, if it was, because, this is the muck of the world.
Well, the thing about it is that really it's so simple. I mean, everything in life is so complicated. But if you want to go to heaven, if you want to be saved, all you have to do is believe that Christ died to forgive your sins. That's it. It's that simple.
Thank you for saying that.
I mean, it's really just that simple.
Yeah, and if you say that to yourself, I'm still investigating exactly how simple it is, but I do believe it is along the lines of that simple. But certainly, I've heard too many anecdotal stories. I don't think anyone's done research on this, but people that, even regular atheists, that do a little sincere prayer along the lines of, Jesus, if you really are the Son of God, reveal yourself to me. He's not going to maybe come into your bedroom and juggle, lightning bolts or anything like that, but he does work in mysterious ways. It may happen. And I think we have a caller, Eric?
Hello.
Hey, hello, caller. Who do we have?
Yes, sir. DiBiase here.
Dave DiBiase?
What up?
Yes, sir.
Oh, all right, Mr. Dave DiBiase.
Now it's getting real.
I have to call you guys and tell you it's a great show, but, you're way off.
Okay.
You have not been paying attention. The problem is white people and climate change.
White people, damn white people, man.
I know.
Don't you guys? I mean,
I
where
hope
you
you
guys been,
listeners out there understand a joke when you hear one.
Me and Nick
What's up,
Malamas have a thing. Every time we see some crazy white dude doing something, we'll post that video or picture, and we're like, "Freaking white people!"
If you do, actually, I could make an argument. White people are to blame for all of our problems.
Yeah,
I mean, we really are.
I mean, that's what everybody says.
Now,
Anyway.
do you see how I just changed the dynamic instantly? I love it.
So, what's on your mind, Dave?
They have just signed off in Arlington, Virginia, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, as soon as they Dave spit out the company line.
Well, they
comfortable.
heard my last name and hung up.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, but no, man, I just wanted to call in and kind of add something with the all the talk of conspiracies and all the stuff we've talked about in the past and everything, and just to keep one thing in mind, and everybody keep something in mind while you're digging around this stuff and trying not to go insane, is that there's only two things that happen. There are things that God wills to happen and things that he allows to happen. And it's just something to kind of remember, because
Awesome
otherwise this stuff can really drive you crazy.
That's the kind of thing that I would have mocked you for saying that to me 5 years ago. Literally, I would have been like, "Oh,
yeah,
Jesus,
I was
freak."
there.
But
I was there too. But that's maybe, and then, that leads to the discussion too. Well, why does he allow this stuff to happen? Well, that's a good question, isn't it?
I think I'm not going to try and answer for him, but you put it out there. I think you put it out there as a rhetorical question, but it's the same reason that the Marines have basic training. I mean, they test you for a reason, to see what your aptitude is, to see what your ability is, to make sure you qualify. I mean, I've been the CEO of a company, and you and I are friends. I mean, I know you personally, and so you've probably heard this before. But when you own a business, and you're an engineer, right, Dave? What?
That's right.
Okay, so you come from a scientific background, and you're just not gonna, if you want to have a great workplace or a great business, you're just not gonna hire any yokel off the street. You're gonna have some minimum requirements. So
that's right. Yeah,
that's what I've always thought that it was about. But that's my personal.
What about my feelings? So what if I feel I'm qualified, but you say I'm not? Am I not?
Well,
am I not entitled to have that job?
Now you're gonna get lawyers involved, and because emotions are ultra important these days.
But Al Sharpton's off the table because of my skin color, right?
Well, I was going to bring that point up later, Howard, but I was going to have a little metaphor that if I had time, I was going to discuss it, and that is, I've been the CEO of several companies, and when I'm hiring a person or sometimes a whole department, we get an account and I need to hire 25 people that specialize in bill collection, let's say. I will advertise to the world. I will put big ads in the Chicago Tribune or on Monster.com or whatever it might be. And I will have some very simple... Sorry about that. There might be some simple hurdles that I put in there specifically, which is, send a resume and a cover letter and be at an orientation at 4:00. And if someone can't do those three basic things, already they're off my radar screen. And typically we may have, let's say, a 2 or 3 day training session, and then the real job begins the following Monday. And I've had people literally miss the orientation, not have the resume or not have the cover letter, not follow the most basic of basic instructions. They show up that next Monday expecting to be hired. And I'm a caring guy. And I've had people in tears before because they were pleading with me saying, "Oh my God, if I don't get this job, I'm going to be on food stamps and they're going to repossess my car." And, and I'm in a really tough spot because I do care about people, but I also care about, my quote unquote business or holy business, i.e. if you're God and it's a holy heaven, what kind of message are you sending to the people that have already earned their way in if I just let if I break the rules for this, I will lose integrity of the place, and it won't be a great place anymore.
If it was that important to you to get that job, you would have had the cover letter, the resume, and you would have been there at 4:00.
And
well, it goes back to what you just said. What Hooper said was key, is that if you make exceptions to the policy, then by definition you no longer have a policy.
Exactly. Right? I've in my early career, I made the mistake of actually hiring the guy in tears. And it was only through experience that I learned the blowback from that is I lost control of my workforce because they started to lose.
Once you make an exception, you're done.
They started to lose respect for me.
That's right. And, now you no longer have a policy.
Exactly.
So,
and I think God, I think Dave DiBiase made a great point there. We have been patterned and trained to believe that if you have a standard or you have a policy and enough people want to get in but don't meet that standard or don't fit that policy, then the problem must be the standard or the policy. I mean, I can't get in the NBA. I'm 5'11" and weigh over 300 pounds. But I want to be in the NBA because I love basketball and they make good money.
Exactly.
But who's advocating for me to be in the NBA? I mean,
I'd watch a game if you were in the NBA.
I feel like I have a good hook shot.
All right. Anything else you want to bring up, Dave?
Not unless you guys got questions. I just wanted to call in and say that you guys sound great on the radio, and it's
we actually want to have you. We want to have you on.
Get you in studio.
Yeah, I want to get you in here too. Plus, I know where you live. So, all right, man. Thanks for calling. We are due to have a beer here real soon. So,
thanks for calling.
I know, man. I owe you a beer and at least an apology. I haven't talked to you in a while.
Same here, man. But I'm glad you called in.
Awesome, you guys. Be cool.
Take care,
dude.
brother.
All right, see you, Dave.
Later.
All right, I think we're about to go to a break soon.
About 7 minutes.
Really? So when I want to talk more, I have no time.
Yeah, I can take you to break, though. That's fine.
All right, so let's do this. I'm going to leave us with just a little metaphor because, the minute you even bring up the word God or Jesus, people start to throw out, preacher, self-righteous. Yeah, you get these images of
I haven't heard you preach yet.
Pulp. Preaching is someone that knocks on your door. Oh my God!
When you're sleeping,
you need to look up, Eric, right now on YouTube. There is the funniest video of these two Jehovah's Witnesses that knock on someone's door, and the guy living there is so friendly. He's like, "Come on in," and he points him to the back, and at the back door, it drops right into a canyon. And my point is, I would never pound anyone's door down to tell them what to believe, but would I put up a sign and say, "Hey, there's something here worth knowing"? It's sort of like if you're on a road trip with a few families and you're the lead car and you drive past a massive pothole, I think you're going to call to the cars behind you and say, "Hey, there's a pothole in the road." And even worse, if you end up discovering that thing's a giant sinkhole that can swallow your whole family vehicle, what kind of person are you if you don't warn the people you care about? Now, whether they listen to you, I'm not going to get in the car and steer it for them. If they don't want my advice, they want to just keep traveling 100 miles an hour down the road, they can drive into the sinkhole, but the blood's off my hands. I've at least done my job. So we're going to, when we come back from the break.
Hey, before we break, I'd like to address something. Jeff said something that we didn't get a chance to go into that I thought was really good. I had something actually on my mind about it, and that was, again, in talking about where people are like, if you're enlightened, you go to college, and if you're enlightened, it's like, oh, that's so ignorant. Oh my God, he's praying. I can't believe it. Wow. I was watching a video that I saw on Facebook, and it was a gay pastor having a conversation with a straight pastor, and he was trying to defend his ability to be a good Christian pastor and gay at the same time. And while I have no problem with any of this, what he said I thought was funny, because the other guy basically was like, no, is that he said, well, Christianity is evolving. Well, no, that's That's what's cool about Christianity. It hasn't evolved. The standards are the same as they were 2,000 years ago. And I thought Jeff brought up a good point. That's what we're, that's part of the myth. It's like, well, it's like anything else. It can evolve. It's like, well, no, there's a policy. There's a standard.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize it either, but all of human history was written before it happened. There is no room for humanity evolving. In fact, I think what God was trying to say is that he saw what would be happening to humanity in the last days, and I think with the incredible help of the mainstream media, and that is really what has launched our society off the cliff. Even in the 1950s, think of it, we went from Leave It to Beaver to the Kardashians in one generation. And think about how far gone and I don't think God has gotten okay with things that he thousands upon thousands of years ago said, I will never be okay with these things. If you want to try and negotiate that with God, I mean, he went out of his way to say every single word that is written in this book will come true. Every yacht, every tittle, every dot will be true, and I don't change. I'm timeless. And I think you're playing with fire if you think Christianity, quote unquote, evolves, or if you've put your own view of who the Son of God and who God are, because the slight vision I had of who they were is diametrically different than what's actually written in his own words. And those words are authenticated by the fact that he makes over 2,000 predictions of things that will happen in the future, and every single one of them has come true, at least everyone that I've looked into. So when we get back from the break, we're actually going to talk a little bit, some advice, do's and don'ts on how to approach people that are close to you. What is the purpose? We're also going to talk about, why bother waking up? What are the advantages to doing it? What's it? What's the reason for it? We're also going to talk about what our hope is. And if there's time, I'm going to get into my personal story and do my best to link up my investigation of 9/11 to the day, which was about 9 months later, where I realized God is a real entity and he's really watching what's happening. And probably what Dave DiBiase just said, which is he either makes things happen or lets things happen. And that's everything.
DiBiase has a great saying that I love, and he was instrumental in bringing me to where I'm at today, as were you. And his saying is, God answers all prayers. Sometimes the answer is no.
Yeah, a good point. Because I was asking God for $1 million a few months ago, and I think I got rubber stamped on that one.
All I want is a new car, dude.
Yeah,
new car.
So
I get a
basic.
freaking